The quarterbacks are looking up. I'm going to tell you why to be optimistic. Football spring. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ryan Harings. Thrilled to have you here. Thank you for being here. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet hits. That's over at FanDuel.com. Today's episode, we're talking about the Badgers offense. Sounds like the quarterbacks are on track, plus key players standing out and reasons for optimism. Let's start with the quarterbacks. I mentioned it in the tease. I want to start right here. Look at last year's top three and look at this year's top three. So last year you had Tyler Van Dyke, Braden Locke, into Mabry Mettauer. That was your top three. This year it's obviously Billy Edwards Jr., into Daniel Neal, and then into Carter Smith. I think you've improved at each of those spots. We're very early in spring. I understand. I think we've improved at each of those spots. Very early buzz on Billy Edwards Jr. Has a lot of the leadership skills that Tanner Mordecai had. And people can be out on Tanner Mordecai as a person that didn't get this offense going. I think a lot of that ended up being Longo. He also got hurt. It was a first year of shifting system. But he was really liked as a leader. He came in instantly and set that tone. That's a lot of what I'm hearing from Billy Edwards Jr. from multiple different people who would know. Like, this is a guy who has swagger. He's a quarterback that people can rally around. They just commands the room. There's a presence about him. Mordecai did that. Tyler Van Dyke didn't really do that. And I talked about that early on last year and said it's a little concerning that we're hearing, Tyler Van Dyke, it's taken him a while to warm up, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a lot to like there with Mordecai. And then on top of that, it sounds, again, going from people who have been in practice, who have covered it for the first couple open practices, including a couple people who aren't media who have talked to me. And it sounds like Billy Edwards Jr. is also connecting to the receivers, making some really nice throws, looks the part, has used his legs. It's very early. We all get it. But one of my sayings that I've used a lot, it comes from a coach at a coaching clinic. It was basketball, but he said, listen, don't overreact to small sample size, but react, right? Small sample size doesn't mean everything, but it doesn't mean nothing. And early practice returns, it sounds like Billy Edwards Jr. has been impressive. Let's talk about the backup, Daniel Neal. I think Daniel Neal is a slightly better version of a Braden Locke, a little more athletic, similar size, similar type of arm, but he's an entire year of starting experience, a little more athletic, can run a little bit more, has maybe a little bit more of that gunslinger in him. I think you're a little better at the number two. And Daniel Neal's made some nice throws through two practices as well. And then Carter Smith. People really like the makeup of Carter Smith. That's something I talked to Brady Collins about. Brady Collins raved about the makeup of him. He's working out with the offensive lineman, which, by the way, I absolutely love that. Not just to build the bond, of the guys who are going to protect you, but offensive linemen are nuts. They're a little crazy, right? And it's good to have a little crazy in your quarterback too. I like that. So I think 1, 2, 3, there's a chance the Badgers have improved at each of their quarterback spots from last year to this year. And some of that improvement will bear out in the fact that this offensive scheme is going to work a little bit better as well, we think, with Coach Jeff Grimes coming over, replacing Coach Longo. We think this scheme is going to fit a little bit better with what the Badgers want to do. But it sounds like, again, one of the things I was told was that the offense looks as cohesive as it's looked, in a couple years. It looks more comfortable, looks more on focus. The early returns sound promising. Now, this is spring football when everybody's in the best shape they've ever been in, when everything's great, when you've turned the page, when you're ready to reset the foundation, all the cliches that people say. But there is a little bit of smoke here that I'm buying into. I do think the quarterback room from top to bottom is better. And one of the players I said coming into this year to track was Carter Smith, because there's something about him I really like. There's just a little something extra in the toolkit with Carter Smith that I really, really like. So I'm excited about the quarterback room. I'm excited about the other thing. So we're starting to get very early. I'll probably say that once or twice again in this show, just so everybody's kind of tracking with me. But again, very early, it sounds like we're getting some nice vibes on the offense that Jeff Grimes is putting in. One of the things that's caught my eye that multiple people have reported on, Rivals has reported on it, The Athletics reported on, that's Jesse Temple and John McNamara and his crew. Definitely always want to give credit where credit is due to the people that are there. And I do plan on making some practices, which is going to be amazing. I'm really stoked for that too. So I'll give you some firsthand looks. But it sounds like a lot more motion. For 2 years of Phil Longo, we've been talking about put some real motion in your offense because it affects the defender's eyes, right? But it also, more importantly, it shows you coverage. It shows you what they're in to some degree. It tips their hand. It makes the reads easier for the quarterback. It creates mismatches. It creates confusion on the defensive end. It creates leverage situations where if the defense doesn't shift in time, maybe you get leverage on the outside by shifting a tight end over. It shows you when the safeties flip-flop with the corners running with the receiver, right? Like it just shows you so many things to not use that at all. And Longo used a little bit of motion. I don't want to say he never used it, but it wasn't very extensive and it wasn't very effective. It's not something that he was a staple of his system, a staple of his offense. Grimes wants to do that. I'm so excited to hear that. So excited to hear the return of some motion. So excited to hear the return of some, honestly, a little bit of that Wisconsin that was so effective for a long time, utilizing that motion and creating some confusion in the defense's head, creating some leverage situations, showing what they're in. I think it's a really nice thing to already hear that is going to be a part of Grimes' offense in Wisconsin. 2 tight end sets, also really like. We're going to get into, let's just do it now. 2 tight end sets with Jackson Aker, also moving to tight end. This is a really interesting quote. This is from Coach Luke Fickell on Jackson Aker moving to tight end. Quote, he's one of those guys I think can be in a position to have an incredible year. A lot of things we're doing have a better chance for him to be put in a position where he can highlight the things that give him the greatest chance to not only help us, but have a future in this game. That's really high praise for Luke Fickell. And Luke Fickell has toned this whole staff and this whole program has kind of toned down some of what from, if you remember when they first got here to now, that's really high praise. And if you look at Jackson Aker, you look at the position he's moving to and the offense that Grimes wants to run with some of those 2 tight end sets. Well, look at the tight end room. Like it makes a lot of sense why Aker is moving into that. You have Koziel who put on weight. There's the number one. He's the receiving guy, but you need kind of a Swiss Army knife. And that's not Koziel. Koziel is not a Swiss Army knife tight end. You want a guy who can go in motion and be a lead blocker, who can maybe motion in as a fullback, who can catch a pass in the flat, who maybe could even take a little tight end screen or a tight end around. That's kind of Jackson Aker. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife type of football player. And this coaching staff really likes him. They really liked him last year. I talked to them in practice. They really like him. His skill set, he's more athletic than people realize. He could play some jumbo running back. I think putting him at tight end is indicative of that skill set because now you can use him in a lot of ways. You can use him in, again, a 2 tight end set. You can use him as a blocker because he has that fullback experience. You can use him to run the ball, to catch, to motion out, to motion into the backfield, to be an extra protector. And that allows, the other thing that does is allows Tanner Koziel to just be the primary receiver, right? I think Aker can do a lot of the dirty work. He can do a lot of those things, and Koziel go catch 50 balls, go catch 60 passes. I think that's what that allows Tanner Koziel to do. It's interesting. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that is a valuable piece, an athletic piece to this offense. I think Jeff Grimes is the type of guy who's going to want to use that. And the fact that Luke Fickell spoke so highly, about Jackson Aker, again, tremendous season, future in this game. I don't think that's a nothing move. Where sometimes you see moves where a guy's moving from outside linebacker to hybrid safety, or he's moving from defensive ends, outside linebacker. And sometimes it's just like we don't have bodies in this spot, so let's find a body to move type of thing. It doesn't really mean anything for the player. In fact, a lot of times it's a negative. This feels like a move that means something for the player. It feels purposeful. And the fact that the coaches have talked about it, I think there's something there. So track Jackson Aker. I really like the upgrades at the quarterback spot in very, very early, but early returns, I got me a little positive with this thing. And then with Grimes, again, next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the changes, but seeing motion, seeing 2 tight end sets, it's got me pretty excited. I'm not going to lie. Coming up next, let's talk about a receiver that is going to help unlock these quarterbacks, a new player in the room. I'm going to talk about him next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick break for our friends of the show over at Factor. Factor is a great friend of mine. They're literally in my fridge right now. Factor helps me eat healthy. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be expensive. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. Trust me, I do it all the time. Get what you want, pop it in the mic. 2 minutes, you're ready to go. Over 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week. You can customize the menu to fit your goals. Whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, whatever it is, they're convenient. They're simple. They're easy. They're delicious. They're repeatable. I could go on and on. I have been a customer of theirs for a long time for a reason. They're incredible. Eat Smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com /Factor Podcast and use code Factor Podcast to get 50% off your first box plus shipping. That's code Factor Podcast at factormeals.com /Factor Podcast. Get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Today's episode also brought to you by our great friends over at Supply House. Supply House is awesome. Again, a lot of handy people listen to this show. I talk about that all the time. With Supply House, you can get all your HVAC, plumbing, all the skill needs for your skilled trades, whatever you're looking for, electrical work, it's all over there on Supply House. It's a reliable way you order those products online, and their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast, coast to coast. If you need help with the order, Supply House has expert support, industry-leading service. You'll always talk to a real person. And they have trade. If you're a trade pro looking for an extra edge, their Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every single order. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. All right. Let's jump back into this. Let's talk about a receiver that I think is going to be the key to this offense. One of the keys to this offense. Yes, Trichke Kahuna, who we've also heard good things about, going to be a big piece. Yes, Vinny Anthony, V8 is going to be fired up. Once again, going to be a big part of this offense, providing speed, some yak ability, some special teams ability, some toughness, leadership. Jayden Ballard. Jayden Ballard is interesting, right? Jayden Ballard, let's do a quick refresh here. Jayden Ballard comes over from Ohio State, hasn't done anything in years at Ohio State. He has one last season of football. He comes to Wisconsin. There is something about pressure that turns useless things, I shouldn't say useless, but turns things into diamonds, right? There is something about pressure that gets your heartbeat beating just a little bit more, that gets you running a little faster, that gets you a little more motivated. This is Jayden Ballard's last year. That's it. Well, I shouldn't say that's it, because who the heck ever knows with the NCAA, but this is probably Jayden Ballard's last year. The pressure is on, right? You put the pot of water on the pot, and for 4 years, you had it on simmer. Now that pot of water is set to boil, and it is time for Jayden Ballard to take advantage of his immense, incredible, ridiculous physical tools. Because as a receiver, he is everything you want. He is everything Wisconsin is searching for. He is everything Wisconsin has been searching for years. 6'2", runs 23 miles an hour, well-built. There's a reason Ohio State recruited him. There's a reason he's been on that roster. Now it's time to click. And we've already seen, again, it's on Twitter. You can look at it. You see Jayden Ballard using that speed, catching a deep pass from, I think it was Billy Edwards Jr. against Nizer Forkran, a battle against one of the best cornerbacks, who what I think is the best cornerback on this team last year, just toasting him. Now, there's not hitting right now. There's not a pass rush, but that's the speed we're talking about. And you're seeing it start to play out a little bit. You're seeing in practice. I'm telling you right now, he's the most physically gifted receiver in that room in the last, I don't know, go back to Quintez Cephas, go back further than that. If you're just talking pure physical gifts, you might go back to Lee Evans. This isn't hyperbole. He's a freak show. He's an absolute freak show from a speed, size standpoint. If he clicks, and it's one of the best things you can see in spring is he's getting reps with the ones and the twos, and he's working with Billy Edwards, and he's catching deep vertical routes. Again, that's his role in this offense. His role is 9 route. His role is get vertical, right? Get vertical, push the safety deep, take the corner with you, draw the attention of defensive coordinators, catch a couple game-breaking plays, but also open up everything underneath. If it's clicking, and again, very early results, you got to like what you're going to see. That could be the coup of the transfer portal season, outside of maybe Billy Edwards Jr. because he's a quarterback, whatever. That could be one of the stars, the impact players of this portal season. We'll see. We're not going to overreact over 2 or 3 practices, but it's worth tracking. And again, don't overreact to things, but don't not react to things either. It's good to see him getting some deep shots and converting. That's against the Nizer Forkran, that's a real D1 corner. So that got me excited. That got me happy. I'm not going to lie. I would be excited about that if you're a Badger fan. Let's talk offensive line rotations. So far, nothing shocking. This is what we expected. The first team offensive line has been Kevin Heywood at left tackle, stepping into that incredibly important left tackle position that's going to be vacated by Nelson. Although I think people probably overrate the left tackle, right tackle thing a little bit now. It's not as huge of a deal to have your absolute best player at the left tackle spot because defenses rotate their pass rushers more now. They'll line up their guy on the left and the right. But listen, there's no mistaking it. You need bookend tackles. You need dudes at the tackle spots to handle the speed of college football defenses now. So Nelson leaves. Obviously, Kevin Heywood, 6'8", sophomore, steps in, and we all expect stardom there. No surprises. He's your left tackle. Then you have Brunner, Renfro, Benz, and Mulman. So no real surprises here. Second team offensive line, Nolan Davenport, early enrollee, already stepping in at left tackle. If you remember when we talked about Davenport, that's a guy to track. Davenport had elite testing numbers, going to some combines, his short area quickness, which again is what you're looking for offensive linemen. You're not looking for 40s. I don't give a crap if your offensive lineman can run a 4.8 40 or 5 or a 5.9 40. He's never running 40 yards. Never going to do that. But Davenport's short area quickness was elite. He has great length, good size, good toughness, good film. It's important to track that. Already running with the second team, that's Nolan Davenport at left tackle. Then redshirt freshman Colin Coverly, who this coaching staff really likes. Redshirt freshman Ryan Corey at center. You have Kerry Kadonko, who's a 6-year senior at right guard, and then Emerson Mandel, right tackle. Interesting because we had talked a long time about Mandel potentially being a guard. This is the second straight year looks like he's going to be a tackle. You can be a mauling right tackle, and Mandel has that type of profile as well. Maybe they just see him better out there. I like that Ryan Corey's getting reps at the second team center. That's a player that athletically I really like coming in. He had good movement skills, felt like a pure interior offensive lineman. He's up over 300 pounds now. I had a chance to talk with him a little bit offline a couple years ago. Really like the mentality, though. Corey in center might be your future. That might be your future center. And Mandel at right tackle is interesting. Davenport at left tackle is super interesting. Love that he's already getting reps there. Again, he's an athletic freak. That's going to be somebody to track. So what are the things that stand out there? The first one is there is a lot of young talent on this offensive line. When you're looking at in that 2 deep, you're looking at a Corey, a Mandel, a Heywood, a Coverly, Davenport. There's a lot of guys in that 2 deep with more coming, right? Because Hardy Watts, I think, is it Watts or Powell? One of those guys isn't on campus yet. But there's more. I think it's Logan. But there's a lot more young talent coming. You got to like how that 2 deep is shaping up at the offensive line. So interesting. No real surprises. Kevin Heywood is going to be probably a star this year. I think it's ready this year. I think he could have played last year. He's that advanced. He's 6'8", 320 right now. Elite movement skills. And when you see him play the high school film or the All-Star games, he's just got a toughness and a meanness to him. So I'm really excited to see him step into that role this year. All right, we're going to take one more quick second, talk a little bit about the defensive line rotations, and then biggest reason for confidence and biggest reason for worry right now on the football side. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. First, a quick second for our friends of the show. Today's episode brought to you by our friends of the show over at FanDuel. FanDuel is awesome. They've been with us for a long, long time. If you've been here, you know that. Right now, NBA is going on. Obviously, March Madness is kicking off. What a great time to do it over at FanDuel. Plus, live in-game betting helps keep that excitement. Parlays, futures, spreads, teasers. They have every option you could possibly want over at FanDuel. And it's easy to use. It's simple. It's fast. It's quick. Please do it responsibly, but FanDuel is your ultimate ticket to all those things. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for $200 in bonus bets. I think I said $150, but $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's over at FanDuel.com, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, of the Locked On Podcast Network. You will not regret it. You have no reason to bet anywhere else. Just please do responsibly always, as always, over at FanDuel.com. We also have, this is a really exciting one for our, with March Madness coming up. Let's talk about this bracket breakdown for.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
All right, let's talk about defense. So we've talked a lot about the offense, the quarterbacks, Jayden Ballard, the offensive line. We talked about Jackson Aker. I do want to point out that it sounds like the running backs, at least early on, are in a three running back rotation, right? With Cade, Dillon, and Dupree. That's great, by the way. That's great. Now, Grimes traditionally just has one guy. He has one running back, but that's great. I want all three of them to get the ball. I want Cade Yakameli to get the ball. I think that's phenomenal. Let's talk about defense. Because, again, outside of the quarterbacks, outside of some of the skill spots, all eyes are going to be on that front seven. All eyes are going to be on some of these defensive transfer guys. It sounds like Perkins is kind of running with the ones right now. So Charles Perkins, over 300 pounds. The staff has raved about his personality, his energy, his love for the game. It sounds like he's kind of in that group with potentially Ben Barton, who put a lot of weight on as well. Daryl Peterson and Corey Walker have been playing a lot on the edge. Again, keep in mind, Daryl Peterson last year was about 240 pounds. He's up to about 260, 265. I think the role for Daryl Peterson, whereas last year there was a lot of 3-down stuff with Daryl Peterson, right? First and second down, we want you to set the edge. Third down, we want you to rush the passer. I think this year it's more Daryl Peterson, and this is just me reading between the lines. I don't know this. I think it's more Daryl Peterson. We want you to set the edge, and on third down, we're going to bring in faster people. I think they bulked him up to help set the edge, to be tougher, to be stronger, and he can do that. Peterson can set the edge, and then on third down, maybe you either kick him inside or you're bringing in a little lighter, faster edge rushers to kind of take his spot. I think that's the role. Corey Walker's 290 pounds, 6'7", 6'6", big dude. So you look across that front line, you have 260, you have 325, you have 310, and then you have 300. Dude, let's go, right? Let's go. Javier Suggs has also looked really good, apparently. A guy with a little more burst, and he might be more of your pass rusher, right? On 3rd and 7, he comes in and Peterson comes off, or he comes in and Ben Barton comes off. So Suggs, I think, is the guy who's going to come in and give you some disruption. Think of him as filling that Elijah Hills role a little bit, but now there's more beef around that Elijah Hills guy, right? Now there's more beef to get you into advantageous situations where your pass rusher is a guy like, hopefully, Javier Suggs, hopefully Sebastian Cheeks, hopefully Allegro and Tackett, and some of these pass rushers where there's more opportunities for them to get after the ball. Matt Young, a guy who's already gotten a little bit of praise, has been around the ball a couple times. Matt Young is the safety transfer out of Bethel. I talked to Coach Cooper about him, really likes his mentality and how he's fit into the team. You have your 2 starters there, but I do think potentially Young is a guy who's going to play a lot. He's going to fit into that 2 deep. He's going to fit into that rotation. So it's nice to see some confidence and some positive words coming out with Matt Young or Trainer, either one of those guys. It all kind of leads into the confidence question. How much are we going to overreact to some of this stuff? And do we legitimately feel like we are better? And I legitimately feel like we are better. I do. I think we're better at quarterback. I think we're better in the coaching staff. I think we have more beef on the defensive line. I think Ballard is potentially the star we've been looking for at receiver. Not star. Star's the wrong word. I don't think he's a star. But the piece that we've been looking for, I think is a better way to put it. I think he's potentially the piece as that fast boundary receiver we've been looking for. I think Koziel's the tight end we've been looking. I'm not trying to get too high on the supply here. I think there's still questions at a lot of spots. And even though I like Billy Edwards, I don't think he's a star quarterback. I don't think you have enough disruptive guys in the front 7 yet, but I think you can stop the run. I think you can get adequate quarterback play. I think you can get better tight end play. I think there's a lot here to, if you kind of look at it, to get excited about. So that's where I'm at. Again, I'm going to get down to some of these practices too, get a firsthand look at it. I'm really excited to check out the defensive line. I'm excited to check out Ballard. I'm excited to check out the quarterbacks, but I like what we've heard so far. And I'm telling you right now, people I've talked to, people who have been there for several years have said, this looks better than it has the last 2 years. It just feels a little better. The coaching staff's a little more confident. This feels better. And I'm not telling you to believe that or not. I'm telling you that's what I've heard. So feel free to get a little excited. Feel free to get a little pumped up about it, Badger fans. Anyway, we're going to wrap up there on Wisconsin. Appreciate y'all as always. When you're done here, go check out the Locked On Big Ten channel. All your biggest stories of the Big Ten over there with NIL, transfer stuff. It's all over the Locked On Big Ten channel. Go check them out on Wisconsin, and we will definitely talk later.